welcome to Trackside with SAGA Motorsports. Today I have two very special people with me. It's John, the man, the myth, the legend, the boss man, here with us, and we have TJ, nickname Flipper. Do what you want with that name. Very accomplished driver, an amazing driver as well. I'm happy to have him, and today what we're mainly talking about is adhesion. It's been an eventful weekend. The weather was supposed to be super mixed. We're supposed to have rain literally all weekend. And it's actually been a good day and a half of open track because people.
Phenomenal day.
It's been a phenomenal day. So yeah, let's get into it, guys. We've all been playing with that traction control button, and some of us taking it off, some of us leaving it on. TJ, what's your opinion? We'll start with you. What's your opinion on that traction control?
I think at some point in time you reach a level where you don't want the traction control to be on because it masks the true handling of the car and it also masks the true skills of the driver. Yesterday I was driving the GT4 RS in Circuits of America, and at turn 16 we have some pretty well worn out rear tires, and entered the corner a little hot, got into a four-wheel slide, had it controlled, had it then aiming back down to where I wanted to, and in that process the Nanny didn't like, the traction control didn't like, or stability control didn't like the amount of rotation I had in the car, and it sequenced in, and all of a sudden I'm on the track. Next second it does a J-hook and shoots off the track. And as you and I saw in the video, that wasn't the hand input. I had it saved going back down to where we wanted to, and the traction control took over, and after that you're on for a ride.
Yeah, well, you guys can definitely be the judge of that from the video, but for a fact, you could see the car sliding, and you see the car come back to what I'm going to call neutral, right? Mm-hmm. And then the car acts up again, and so we all think you kind of had it gathered, but then again, not so much. I think the you being a no traction control person, I think it comes from where you started, right? You obviously started karting, you moved up your way, and you've raced cup cars where it's there's no such thing as an aid, right?
I haven't driven or owned an automobile that has aids, so I'm used to driving without aids. I'm used to being able to control the car through my throttle and hand input, and I had the car saved yesterday. I clearly had it pointed in the direction where I wanted it to be going, and all of a sudden, if you look at the data, you'll see that the nannies kick in, and the car's off and gone, and I can't do a thing about it. And that's been the problem I've found a lot of times with some of the students that I teach. We'll get into a situation where nanny kicks in, and all of a sudden, the car's not doing what we want to, and it sticks or comes to a slow spot. And
yeah, but on the flip side as well, like if you have any
saves
student,
saves a lot of students. I do not disagree that it saves students.
Let's turn everything off.
But at some point in time, at your level, you just have to start turning things off. And when we got into the GT3 with you the other day, yesterday, I turned all the nannies off. And you usually drive with the nannies on. I turned everything off. So how did you like that?
So here at COTA, so we're in a home track, which is COTA here in Austin, Texas. The reason I was comfortable with it is obviously because I think I have a few thousand laps here, so I know what the track looks like. I know how it changes with undulation, how it gets bumpier, less bumpier. So I was open to that, right? But for a fact that once all that comes off, you're driving a different car. It's not wildly different, but turn one, you'll realize like these things are doing so much for you, right? You have to be ginger, you have to roll throttle, you can't stab the throttle because it's literally going to light up the wheels.
The very first couple of corners, you're back to your normal, let's just plant the throttle and electronics kick in and it controls your acceleration. Now you had to control your acceleration. The first couple corners and first things you were doing it was either over rotating the car, or it was, traction control is no longer there. You're spinning the tires and you see the tack jump.
The tack, yeah. It's audible.
So therefore you had to start adjusting your own personal self and squeezing the throttle down, not just banging the throttles. And, it also changed your input to the wheel.
Yeah. And another thing that for me makes it controversial also is I felt like the car turns in so much better, but it's all you on the way out, right? So if you hang that ass out, or if you're like in a high speed corner, like you just got to be so precise.
Well, even during that session where we ran with the electronic stability control in the off position, there were some situations where you had everything gathered up with your hands, that if you would have had the electronic stability control, you may not have had it gathered up with your hands. You don't know if it would have either stepped out and or if you would have been able to gather it up and it would have decided to take over its own.
Yeah, I think that's 100% a fact.
But it also changed the way your car handles.
Massively.
Yeah, so we think we have well-handling cars when we're running traction control, electronic stability control, and you turn that stuff off. Now you find out how the car really is handling.
Yeah, and in these cars too, so on just the 992 GT3 RS has like where you can tune the traction control, but previous generation cars you could turn off ESC, which is stability control, or you could turn off ESC, which is stability control and traction control. Traction control is the big one. ESC will just kind of let the car dance a little bit more, but traction control is basically where it's all off, it's all you. Some people say there's still a little bit there, but
doesn't feel like it.
It does. It really doesn't feel like it. Now, John, you mentioned it on previous videos, like, not that you like these cars because they do so much for you, but you like having that just in case of a
drama.
A drama, yeah, like a big drama event. Well, what is your thoughts about traction control, the nannies, or whatever we call them?
Well, I manage this whole SAGA team through the ownership of these cars.
Yes, sir.
And when we go out on a weekend, we're running $2 million worth of cars, and we have 5 different drivers, all different skill levels.
Yes, sir.
So the reason that I want them all run with nannies is that it can protect you when you make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad thing. Over the last 30 years, all manufacturers have started putting those safety things in the car so that a lot more people can drive safely at no matter what skill level.
Yeah.
And that's how this whole organization got started. We were people that were not race car drivers, but we wanted to be. And we wanted, and this is my problem, I wanted to have the best of the best out on the track. I didn't want to go out and buy a 1990 Miata. It did not look fun to me. And so we got the best of the best. And Porsche, in my opinion, has the best nannies, traction control, computer in the industry right now, so that you can drive with them on and still perform. Yeah. So that's a skill level issue. Mm-hmm. So that's why I do like the nannies. It's more survival and keeping the machinery intact. But when you're at Felix's level or TJ's level, there's a difference. They want to control that car, not let the car's computer control them. And there's a big difference. But even someone at my level, I would call myself a high intermediate. And it does affect things that I do that were negative. Like I spun out today. Mm-hmm. And it was a big spin out. I had it under control. And then the car snapped in the opposite direction. And so it put me in a terminal spin. Mm-hmm. I had to start the engine back up and wait for the traffic to go by. So, but in the computer's opinion, it said, no, he doesn't have it under control. And it tried to take over. It made it the problem worse. So it can happen.
Yeah, it's kind of simple, or it's complicated, but it's kind of simple too. Sometimes, like if you have the car, if the car initiates a slide right, you can correct for it and you can maintain the throttle, and that'll usually get you like a little drift. Well, if you have the traction control on, there's no such thing, right? The car's wanting to straighten you out. It's forcing you to straighten out. So then you're fighting, chopping the throttle, or like you trying to get the car straight as well. So it's two different, the car and you trying to do the same thing. And then sometimes that's when you get the overlaps, and then you get tank slappers, or the car, like for TJ's case, that it started another rotation. He had already had it saved, but the car still thinks it's under yaw, maybe. Mm-hmm. So it's
but and in John's point, we have lots of dollars worth of cars. We have individuals at different skill levels. Those electronic stability controls work well for most of those individuals. Mm-hmm. And in John, probably 98% of the time, they're not going to interfere with what he's trying to do.
'Cause they're so good.
But as he's trying to increase his skill level and as we're trying to change some habits, you know, he got himself in a position today, like I did yesterday, where the car's rear end started to come out. He was on the gas. He had the steering input that he wanted in the car. He clearly had it saved by video. And the nannies didn't like the yaw and the rotation of the car. They kicked in, and after that, we were just passengers. It was gone.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're great, but at some point in time, you hit a level that they become a detriment to the cars on a long-term basis versus, you know, saving the car. So John's at a level now as we start adjusting things, you know, he may at some point in time decide that some of that he's going to, in the GT3 RS he can dial some of those nannies back. So they're still going to save him in an extreme situation. But in today's situation, we would have just continued down the track with the input that he had in the car would have gathered itself up. And his ability, you know, and the other cars are either on or off. In his car, we can adjust that control settings. But if he does a couple more of these, he's going to decide that, you know, I'm at a skill level where I'm confident I can catch it. And then at the same time, I don't want the car to control my destiny. So he's going to dial some of those nannies back a little bit. In his car, he's got that adjustment, and some of the others we don't. I clearly see why in some of the other drivers, we want all the stability controls on. And, you know, I think he needs to make a decision as who he wants to have the controls on and off on, you know, but. You know,
no, that will not be my decision. It'll be Mr. Felix's decision.
But at some point in time, they in situations they become detrimental to what you're trying to do. And you're at the level. I mean, you saw yesterday. If we would have had the traction controls on at what you were trying to do yesterday, it wouldn't have let you do what you did.
Yeah. It's, the cars, like I said, they handle a little bit differently. They turn differently, right? Because the car's not trying to straighten you out. You can roll power differently. Ryan even brought it up in another video for the 992, right? You turn that car in sometimes and it starts sputtering just because you have a lot of wheel in it, but the car's 100% hooked up. So the car's just not going to let you feed power with a certain amount of wheel, even if the rear is planted. So
and I saw you yesterday, you know, in the morning, you've got the foot down, the throttle down, and the car's not responding to your foot throttle. So your input is just force the throttle to the floor and real quick inputs. In a real car, you can't do that. So you're having to modulate your turn and modulate your hands and your foot responses yesterday differently. And I said to you, it changes the handling of the car. Now we can work with the stability controls off, get the cars handling the way that you want them to be handling, and then for those who want the stability controls turned on, I think they're going to have a better platform.
I 100% agree. My next question is for like everyone that's going to watch this video. John, I think you're the person that keeps the coolest head in this place. How would you recommend someone, or how can someone be realistic on when it's time, not maybe to turn everything off, but approaching a weekend or approaching the start of track days and not being like overconfident that I'm the best driver out there, or I've done 100 in a corner and 183 or whatever, like how? Because a lot of people, like even the first times we got here, right, we're like, we're great drivers, and they put us in advanced, and we're like, holy crap,
That's right.
You're getting run over.
We're getting run over, exactly. So but it's something that you don't realize it until you do it, right?
That's right.
Until you get run over is when you're like, shit, like you don't learn by watching someone do it. So what would you recommend to people, or
to make that decision? You have to have a plan. You can't just say, I'm good, turn them off. You got to tell me, where do you think that's going to help you? At what turn and at what speed are you thinking you're going to gain an advantage by not having the nannies on? Or because you felt them impede your performance? You got to tell me what you think you're getting ready to do. This is something I learned maybe 5 years ago. I would be going around a turn, I'd have a light slide, and I was all proud of that. And then my instructor would tell me, the nanny saved you. I said, what nannies? I didn't feel any nannies. He said, that's how good they are. They saved you. That car should have spun out. And so with that, I said, that expertise in your ability to drive and understand what the nannies are doing for you, until you can tell me you understand all that and show me that you do, I'm not letting you touch my nannies. Because that's my car you're going to wreck.
Yeah. It's understanding vehicle dynamics, what tires you're on. There's so much involved.
I would say that, everybody should start out with the electronic stability controls on and the traction controls on a full basis. There's only a few people on this track here, whether it's with our team or whether it's without our team, that even suggest anybody turning those stability controls off. I remember 2 years ago in Barber, one of the guys that run with us, Ryan, he was coming into turn 5 at Barber, and as soon as he turned in, he would just drop the throttle. And I said, first off, when you drop the throttle, the stability control and traction control kicks on, and it's going to modulate how fast you can get out of the corner. If he would have backed off and just applied the throttle with a better throttle input, it probably would have come off the turn faster, because it's not now in the nanny mode. He's now in traction control. He's able to control the throttle. So I reached down and I flipped the traction control off as he's entering the corner, and he nailed the throttle. Tons and tons of runoff from him, but he still had a big slide and a big correction. He did well to correct it. And he goes, "Whoa!" And I said, "You just can't get into the habit of slamming the throttles down and letting the car come off the corner electronically. You have to be able to control this car." So that was a demonstration. And after that, we turned the traction control back on, but he was now modulating the throttle coming off turn 5, and he was actually accelerating faster than he was just letting it electronically take care of itself. So, I think people have to understand that they think they're great, and as soon as you get in with somebody who's a professional and you choose the right corner with the right condition, the right runoff area, and you turn that one corner off, you turn the traction control off, they're going to learn real quick that they're not as good as they think they are. They're going to learn real quick that the stability control is masking a lot of the things they do, and that's causing us huge problems across the industry, in my opinion. You got a lot of people driving cars at levels they should never be driving. You see that every day.
But you're talking about like pro level race teams and stuff like that, like people who maybe never got the full experience, right, never progressed, not through car vehicles, but through driver development, right? They're dropping in straight into GT4, GT3 race cars, and
all of a sudden they're oh crap,
Yeah.
they're having problems.
It
with
happened at Road Atlanta, remember?
Yes.
That was our first at Road Atlanta, and we had all the nannies on, and we're trying to learn the track. There was a trailer next to us. Were they 2 Ferraris?
Oh, I think it was Porsches. I think
2
it was
Porsches?
GT3s. Yeah, I think it's
And their instructor said, "Turn the nannies off." They both totaled their cars at turn 2.
Same thing happened a year ago when the guy took the Cup car out, and he's coming through 18 here at Circuits of America,
Yes.
and he just drops the throttle like he does in his
Street
GT3 street car, and just drops the throttle, and the rear end comes around. He doesn't catch it, and it hooks in and it absolutely destroys a brand 992 Cup car, So that's one situation. The other situation is even here at driver education events. You got people driving on the nannies at levels they should never be going at as far as time lapse. You got people that are just doing things that are just absolutely crazy, and they think they're driving the car. They're not driving the car.
Well, that's a whole different topic, right? Because sometimes it's like you drive what you can most afford or whatever, even if you don't have the skill, right? There's people who've never been in a car at all, and they'll go buy the latest, greatest, come out here, have a good lap time, but they're just flirting with
Disaster.
Every car
yeah.
Every car now has some type of stability control. Doesn't matter what it is.
For sure.
And we see people here driving, getting on a track, brand new, wanting to go and getting out there and driving at levels that the car's allowing them to drive at. But if they did not have those, they wouldn't be at those levels. They would have spun 10 times over the weekend.
Mm-hmm. That's good for the industry.
Yes.
It allows more people to do this exciting sport.
Mm-hmm.
But when they want to jump it by taking off what allowed them to be out here and have a great time, then they're not going to have a great time.
Yeah. And these things don't apply on the street.
Yeah.
Because you try these things on the street, and we have lots of runoff room. I mean, on the street,
Mm-hmm.
you got the curbs and the trees and the fire hydrants and the poles, and
Yeah.
So.
And something that we keep using the word runoff room, this track is designed for you to make mistakes. It gives you a way to escape, and we all use those. It happens. and we have the nannies on, and it happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so you go to track like ECR, you go to track like G2, Barber, where there's little aprons maybe here and there, but
yeah,
there's zero room for error.
Yeah.
If you have a continuous slide, you're sliding to the grass, and that's never going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, if my incident yesterday would have happened anywhere but on a racetrack, and when the nanny would have kicked in and caught me and sent me off, we'd have been off into a grass, tree, pole, shrubs, ditch. It would have been a bad thing. So, you need to temper this and remember, this is for racetracks only, designed for racetracks. This is not designed for the streets.
yeah. On the more technical side, TJ, maybe I think you can help me with this topic. It's something that I've always thought about is, how on our cars we always carry, so this is still on the same topic of grip, we're always changing the wheel size, we're always changing the tire size. That obviously interferes with how the car is doing traction control as well. And it obviously interferes with even other factors like ABS, and car performance balance, right? So we're always changing the sizes. We're always fighting with getting the car to feel good on the OEM street tires and the race, or not the race, but the track tires. And it's a give and take, right? It's always a give and take in this sport. What do you feel about the 19s and like moving these cars? Because it's a staggered setup initially, right? It's a 2021.
Well, you've got a 2021 or 22.
2021.
2021. So you've got a 2021 stagger on the GT3 RS, and the car was designed around those wheel and tire settings and the stagger and everything else. And when you go to a 19-inch all the way around in a square setup, you're now outside the parameters that Porsche built into the system for the stability control. Did that have some effect to John today? I don't know. Did that have some effect to the GT4 RS that we were running yesterday? Probably not, because we're running the same size and stagger.
They're oversized.
Yeah,
it's the same.
Yeah,
same size.
We're running oversized tires,
Oversized tires, yeah.
but Porsche was designed one way. They did a lot of testing that way. Their computer systems are set up that way. To think that it doesn't have some part of the equation would be crazy for us to think that way.
Okay.
They're designed that way, and we're interfering with their design. They've got years and years of racing experience. They got years and years of computer and knowledge and everything. And now we're trying to invade and do something that if it would have been the right way to go, they would have done that in the very beginning. They didn't, obviously. So, does it have something to do with it? I'm sure that some part of the mathematical calculation, it had something to do with it.
Okay. What about you, John? You have any?
I agree with that. I'm a technology person, and when you hard code something, there's a reason. You hard code it so nobody can screw with it.
Yeah.
And so they hard coded that in Porsche. But we try to emulate what it is when we change a wheel or a tire size so that we can get as close to what they had in the first place. We're not trying to fight their technology. And we know that. If it doesn't, you'll get a message saying there's something wrong. And there's nothing wrong, but the computer thinks there is, because the spin rate is different, and the travel. All those things are hard coded.
Yeah, all this is obviously in search of just a more stable at the track. Maybe not like in the 3RS case, I don't think it's a tire that's going to have more grip. It's just, we want something that can provide more consistent laps, right? Versus a street tire that has a good lap. And then
Sure.
These cars are really working those tires
Sure.
hard, at least the new cars.
I think there's a minor adjustment I saw on my Cayenne, because I was getting different miles per hour going down the road, and it had there was an adjustment you can make to your snow tires or your street tires, and the size of the tire is different. So you would get different miles per hour distances on the odometer. So they do make that adjustment, but we're way beyond that when we start changing tires.
But you'll probably remember this incident a couple of years ago at Eagles Canyon, through the high-speed turn 4. I'm in a Porsche Carrera GTS, which has more of a street-based computer system than it does the GT3 computer system. And I come out of karting and I left foot brake, and I like to be able to balance the brake and throttle to get the car to do what I want to do. And I had set a set of 19-inch Hoosiers on the Carrera, which is a smaller aspect, and it has a lot higher grip. And I come out of 3, and I start turning into number 4, and I'm trying to light brake with my left foot, and the car just totally locked me out of the brake system, and the car goes off the track, and you know, we do some damage to the car. And I went back to the dealership, and I said to John Gladwell, who's the Porsche guru that we run with, we call him Dr. Boxer. And I said, I got locked out. He goes, nah. And he looks in the computer system. He goes, my God, you got locked out. I said, yeah. And so, you know, my recommendation after that was the people who are running the Carrera S's and the GT S's that still have the street configuration. My recommendation to the PCA at that point in time was that we, at least for our region, that we turn the Nannies off because they're harmful to the instructor, because it does not recognize the rotations, does not recognize the speed. It's a street configuration, and you know, it totally locked me out of a brake system. So that wasn't cool. So, you know, you have to be careful of the car that you're in, and understand the parameters and how the electronic stability control was designed and what it was designed for. You know, if it's designed for the racetrack, like the GT3s, the GT3 RSs, and some of the other high performance cars that are out there, you know, some of the Lambos, you know, you have the high end Toyotas, they're designed for the track.
Mm-hmm.
They're not designed for the street. But you take a street computer out on the course, and you're going to end up with even more problems.
Yeah, especially we saw your overlay, and then you had some overlap on throttle and brake, and I think that's just like I said, you grow up karting, right? So you not that you're binding the car, but you're
I've got my foot down, and instead of letting on and off the gas, I'm trying to balance the car with my left foot.
Yes, and you're doing that simultaneously, right? With the throttle, with the brakes, so sometimes there's a little bit of overlap. But like the GT4 RS, completely fine with that, right? Yesterday?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, you had a decent amount of overlap. I've seen it through Jake's data. I try to really keep it like, wait until I'm off, but sometimes I will have that. Before I've even released off the brake pedal, I transition to throttle, and there's both of the brake bars are on, and it's...
But the 911 Carrera street car did not like both brake and throttle at the same time. It shuts down. So electronics are meant to save people lives on the street. They do a great job. They're meant to allow a person who's on a track like we're at to enjoy themselves. Okay, but at some level, they become more of a masking agent, especially those who are trying to get into the pro level, because you think you're driving at level A and you're really driving at level C, and you just don't know that. And you know, sometimes you find out the hard way. You go think the next best thing in a race car, and you show up at the racetrack, and next thing you do is you're picking up a total race car, and you don't know what you did wrong. So you know, I recommend at some point in level, run with a pro in the car, and get some instruction, and you know, it opens your eyes when he reaches over and turns off that stability control. It changes the entire environment, as you've seen.
Correct. No, it's a great experience, but we've been doing this for 5-6 years, fairly often, right? Initially, we're doing 25 weekends a year. Now I think we're down to like 13-14 weekends, which is still a lot of track time. It's a lot of seat time, and barely am I like... You've told me for a while that we're at the level where we're ready, but it's there's a lot at risk.
That and what is our real life goal?
It really it really depends on the tracks that you're at.
True.
You know?
True.
Am I comfortable with tearing electronic stability control with you off in this car here? Yes, I am.
Let's go to G2, okay. First time ever. Let's turn everything off.
Yeah. But if I go to like a Motorsport Ranch or an Eagles Canyon, am I comfortable turning the electronic stability control off there? Yes, because at worst case, you're going to get the car dirty because there's nothing to the most part to hit. Am I comfortable turning that off at Watkins Glen or a Barber or other tracks with most people? No, I'm not. I chose Ryan at turn 5 at Barber just because there's a tremendous amount of runoff area, and I wanted to get my point across to him. You just can't slam the throttle down. You can't learn to drive that way. So, I made my point in one corner only, and we were done. But, he learned the lesson real quick.
And speaking of learning lessons, when anyone comes out here to do track day stuff, please take it as a progression. We've always, John and I and TJ, we've always been, there's a great community where we're always talking to each other. We always like trying different tires. We like experimenting tires, pressures. Just trying different tires, I think, also opens your mind to how they heat up, where they perform best, where they fall off. Because, right, some tires have that peak, and then they're good as they're cold, and then they get worse, and then some of them you have to heat up. So all that just is really keeps you on your game and helps you even with driver development, like actually wheeling a car. So I always push people to experiment with tires like the GT4 RS.
I also like people to run tires that are past their peak.
Yes.
Tires that have a lot of slide in them.
Not dangerously past their peak.
No,
like
but you know what I mean. Yeah, but I want them to be heat cycled. I want them to be loose. I want them to be a little bit greasy, because you learn a lot when the car's in that type of situation. If you're running a fresh set of tires every time you get on the track, again, we got electronic stability control, but then you got all the grip of the brand new tire, and that's not real life.
Yeah. John, any additional inputs before we wrap this up?
I was thinking about what TJ was talking about. First, this whole conversation started with the title adhesion, and that means how well does your tire stick to the track under stress. And the one thing that caused all of us problems is that you're trying to get to that limit. Unless you know the limit of the adhesion, you can't drive it at peak. There's a lot more room left, but finding that is sometimes scary, where you're trying to see if can it take that turn at 80 miles an hour instead of the 60 we've been running. Well, sometimes you find out it actually can. Other times you just found out that you were driving at the limit and 61 miles an hour, it goes into a spin. That takes seat time. All the science we talked about here is absolutely applicable. But the one thing that you have to know is where's your escape route? If you go down that turn, where's the runoff so that you can get to there? So I'm talking about safety now of everything we talked about. When you hit that limit, your car's going to let go. It can only hold at certain parameters. When it lets go, where are you going to go? Where are you going to take that car? Because it wants to go somewhere when it lets go. And that's why these huge racetracks like COTA is so beautiful. There is no turn at COTA that does not have a good escape route, which is the track out. Right. So that's my thoughts on everything we talked about leads up to the one thing you're trying to figure out: what is the best configuration on your car? What is the best tires you have on your car to drive it as fast as you think you want to drive it? For a lot of people, going down the back straightaway at 125 miles an hour is plenty. And then at 12, you got to bring it down to 40 miles an hour. Are you skilled at that? And there's a whole set of skills that come into that. But if you don't have the skills, there's a runoff that is, I guess F1 runs off there a lot because
they do.
It takes you got a quarter of a mile of runoff there. Yeah. So those are my last words on adhesion. Is you need to learn your limits. It's like Clint Eastwood. What was the saying? Man's got to know his limitations. Yeah, that's the same thing with a car. You better know your car. My best car I ever drove, I drove for about 2 years, was my prior version GT3 RS. Felix had, over a 3-year period, got that car to do exactly predictable outcomes on anything you did to it. It always went into a 4-wheel spin. Tail never chased me.
Slide, yep.
4-wheel slide.
Everywhere.
Yeah, 4-wheel slide. And with that kind of confidence, you can take a lot of turns above the level of adhesion because you know what the car's going to do. It's not going to spin out on you and you don't know when is that going to happen. Well, when you get the car tuned just right, you have a lot of confidence that, okay, if I push it to the limit, it will slide, 4-wheel slide, not the tail coming around or push. So that's what I would recommend to everybody, is to learn your car and know what it's going to do when you make a mistake. And the mistake I'm talking about is going too fast into a turn. That's usually when the slides come in. So
People always ask me as a pro, you must drive fast in the street. No, I don't. I don't take a lot of unnecessary risk on the street. The only time I practice limits is in a safe environment, a controlled environment, most likely racetracks, those that don't have significant amount of guardrail. They've got long runoff areas, or the most thing you can do is turn into the grass. There's no curbs. So number one is, if you're going to practice limits, be in a safe environment.
For sure.
Okay. And that's critically important, is that you're in a safe environment.
Yeah, where are you gonna go 120 on the tour road if you're doing $160 at COTA?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it makes zero sense.
Yeah. And the other is I also tell you to seek advice, seek professional advice. Make sure somebody's in the right seat. Somebody helps you with understanding what the car's doing from a dynamic standpoint, because you need to understand how the car is going to react when you start making some of these changes. And mostly you and I have conversations on setups and pressures and where we're setting the sway bars and everything.
How long did it take me to get there?
Yeah, it took you a long time. It takes you a long time. And that also feeds, and every time you make a change, it feeds into the electronic stability control and how that's also going to react. Yeah. But the last point is when you're driving a car at high speed, it doesn't matter where I'm at any racetrack, I always have in the back of my mind a plan if something goes wrong right then and there. Okay, every corner to me has an escape route or escape something.
Love it.
And when I was with John today, when he spun, he's in the middle of a spin, and I'm going, we're okay, because I knew where we were at, and I knew we weren't going to hit anything, and I wanted him to know that there was nothing going to happen. Yeah. So.
Yes, he did.
In a super safe place. So. If we're speaking at
and he was calmly saying it. We're okay.
And how are you? Well, what are you saying in your mind? Shit. Beep, beep, beep. Yeah.
So, be safe. Get an education. Have somebody there in the right seat with you that's on a professional level that you're trying to attain. But more importantly, always have a backup plan. Always be able to implement that backup plan. Don't put something at risk. And that doesn't happen on the road, guys. That just doesn't happen on the street.
Yeah.
And guys, take that from the guy that's the craziest driver here. So,
and has driven everything, everywhere.
Everything, everywhere, upside down, and right, TJ, just to include that. So obviously, we can keep talking about adhesion. We could talk about alignments. We could talk about tire pressures, but you guys will have to tune in for that next one. Who wants to wrap it up?
Hey, I appreciate you listening to this little venture. Please check into some of our next conferences and conversations, and do one thing: be safe, get a pro, always find a way to get out.
Yeah, please leave your questions and comments and concerns down below. Tell me what you think about TJ's spin.
Hey.
One last thing: all the events and sponsors that we go to for novice drivers, first time getting on the track, they provide for free an instructor for the whole weekend.
Yes, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and that's how we all started.
Yes.
Because they won't let you on the track until you've been proven by an instructor that you have a right to move up to the next level. So everybody in this organization, everybody in SAGA has been through the school. We all started as novices, and that's how we got here.
And we promote having. That's how we met TJ. That's how we've met one of our best friends, Tim. We've met a lot of.
That's how we met. I was the instructor, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you end up having good friends for life in the passenger seat that will not literally hold your hand or sometimes your steering wheel, but they'll take you through the process of this whole thing. And it's like anything in life, right? There's steps to it.
There's steps.